Hi, I'm Carl Azus. First topic today on CNN 10 concerns chicken, eggs, and soap. 3 items available right now at practically any grocery store in America, but much harder to come by and afford in a country just 90 miles from U.S. soil. Cuba has a food shortage. The Caribbean nation's communist government has put what it calls regulations, which are rations, on meats and cleaning products. The reason? There are fewer of them on the island, and the government says it's trying to make sure what is available is distributed equally. Cuba imports 2/3 of its food from other countries, and its economy has been heavily influenced by what happens abroad. For instance, Cuba used to be supported by the former Soviet Union, but that support ended in 1990 when the communist bloc was getting ready to collapse. That sent Cuba into a depression. By the end of the 90s, things were getting better for Cuba's economy, and that was thanks to oil provided by Venezuela. But as that country's economy has crumbled in recent years, those oil supplies have dried up, and so once again, Cuba may be facing a crisis. The country has voiced support for the Venezuelan government, and that's resulted in economic penalties from the United States, which opposes Venezuela's government. How bad could things get for Cuba? The nation's Communist Party leader recently indicated that conditions probably won't be as difficult as they were in the early and mid-90s, but that his nation had to be ready for the worst. Signs of trouble have already reached Cuban shores and moved inland.
Juana leaves her old Havana apartment to see what there is at the bodega. That's what Cubans call these small neighborhood markets that carry products subsidized by the government. The options have always been scarce, but these days, Juana says, there is less and less for people like her. Juana is retired with a government pension of about $12 a month, and she washes laundry for her neighbors so she can afford to eat. If you work, you don't get anything, she says. When you go to a market, there's nothing. The people who buy to resell take everything. Facing the worst food shortages in years, the Cuban government is implementing even stricter rationing on increasingly hard to find products like chicken, eggs, and soap. The government blames the shortages on increased U.S. sanctions, but the slow collapse of socialist ally Venezuela, which sends Cuba most of the island's supply of oil, is also taking a toll. Cuba imports most of the food its citizens consume, and the government has the monopoly on those imports. Cuban officials have told the populace to remain calm. Every day, though, there are longer lines at this government-run supermarket, which charges for mostly imported goods at prices far beyond what many Cubans can afford to pay. Hoarding of products is increasing as fears grow that a severe economic crisis is on the horizon. So there are several hundred people here who've been here for hours waiting because the word has gotten out that there will be chicken at this market. I got a message on a social media app called Donde hay comida? Where is there food? The problem is, though, even if you get here, you have to get here early to make sure you're in the right place in line, because by the time you get inside, there may be none left. For many Cubans, this has become a daily ritual, waiting in line for hours to buy a single item. I've been here for an hour, other people since 5 a.m., Erasmus tells me. On Mother's Day, I came at 9 a.m. and left at 4 p.m. It's too many hours. The shortages came coincidentally just as the government finally gave Cubans widespread access to mobile internet, for the first time allowing frustrated consumers to post their photos on social media of endless lines and even the occasional fight breaking out. For people on the bottom, like Juana, the answer to the crisis seems to be more government rationing so that everyone gets their share. It's very expensive. Fruit is so expensive. Everything is, she says. It's because of the people who resell things. There should be a law making them lower the prices. Food shortages that, despite near total government control, are now out of control. Patrick Ottman, CNN Havana.
10-second trivia. What is paillasson? Is it a French dessert, a flowering plant, a type of straw, or a tunic? This is a type of straw that's woven to make hats. And that word is apparently one of the hardest for students to spell at the Scripps National Spelling Bee. The 2019 competition's coming up next week in the U.S. state of Maryland, and a group of linguists from Babbel, a language learning tool, teamed up with folks from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary to determine the hardest words from the past decade, the ones that knocked out spelling bee contestants in the last round. They included several terms that came from other languages like French, German, and Italian, and for many of them, their pronunciations and meanings may be as elusive as their spellings. Consider Schwärmerei, a German word that means excessive enthusiasm. Another French term was gaillardia, a type of plant or flower. How about azacahuite, a pine tree you'll find in Mexico, or cipollino, an Italian word for a type of Roman marble. Lassi was on the list. It's a Hindi term for a yogurt drink. So was háček, a Czech term for the mark that's over the C in this word. So if you're an aspiring spelling champion, practice these for a spell. Up next today, if a meatball is meatless, what kind of ball is it? A plant ball? The one that IKEA is developing is. The Swedish company is one of many trying to cash in on a growing demand for meat alternatives, which are intended to taste like beef but be healthier. Not everyone's on board. For some consumers, the taste of plant-based meat alternatives simply isn't meaty enough. There's also a growing consumer preference for simple, natural foods with few ingredients. Meat alternatives can have more than 15 ingredients. A U.S. food market analyst says that could cause problems for the industry in the years ahead.
The unmistakable sizzle of meat on the grill. The real meat and the Beyond Meat.
We have our Beyond Burger over here, and we have our beef burger over here. Once you dress them up, it's impossible to tell the difference.
At this Bear Burger restaurant in Manhattan, burgers made from plant protein make up a meaty portion of sales.
The response has been great. It's been so great, in fact, that our menu is now 50% vegan.
Cheers! For first-timers, it takes a little getting used to.
A little smoky.
It's like crispy.
And very crispy, yeah. But it doesn't taste like a real
It doesn't taste like a burger
at all.
Investors, though, had no trouble taking their first bite. Beyond Meat's beefy IPO soared 160% on its first day of trading on May 2nd, the best IPO jump of a major US company since the financial crisis. Analysts believe it's part of a veggie revolution that is just getting started.
If it follows the same path that the plant-based beverage market followed, you'd see it growing from roughly $13 billion, $14 billion today up to potentially over $40 billion over the next decade.
While Beyond Meat is not yet profitable, its revenues are up more than 130% in each of the past 3 years, and it's expanding into new product categories like meatless sausage.
It's not just vegans and vegetarians that are interested in this. In fact, 93% of the people that are putting the Beyond Burger in their cart at the nation's largest grocer are also putting animal protein in their cart. It's a tremendous sign that we're able to grow the business.
Thank you very much. Now the Beyond Burger, it does have some competition, mainly from this one, which is the Impossible Burger from Impossible Foods. That's already on the menu at Burger King, which is rolling out the Impossible Whopper. McDonald's is also selling a meatless burger in Germany made by Nestle, and Tyson Foods, one of the world's biggest meat producers, is also set to launch a fake meat. Well, they both smell like meat. As for my first bite, well, it felt like eating a burger, just a little less beefy. Well, I quite like them. They're not exactly like meat, but they are something interesting, and I do think this might be a taste of things to come. Claire Sebastian, CNN, New York.
Confirmed. Fire helmets can hold a maximum of 10 ducklings. That's a recent tweet from South Metro Fire Rescue in Littleton, Colorado, and here's how they know. A recent call came in saying that ducklings had gotten stuck in a storm drain. The mother was waddling anxiously nearby, but she had nothing to fear. Firemen worked together to retrieve the wayward babies, carefully carry them to a safe spot, and reunite them with their mother. They were quacked to act. Their efforts fit the bill. They might have found it draining, but if they canvass back to the area, they'll find they made a teal difference, having had a golden eye for saving animals from a malady and not ducking out until everything was just ducky, y'all. I'm Carl Azus, and that's CNN 10.